Welcome to Negotiation, Conflict Resolution, and Peacebuilding 507, Research Methods and Interpretation. I'm Robert Whipple, and it is January 20th, 2013. In this presentation, I will cover the reading for Week 3. The course learning outcome we will focus on this week is to define theory and why it is important for a reflective practitioner. This week, your assigned reading is from Deutsch, Coleman, and Marcus, The Handbook of Conflict Resolution, Theory and Practice; Frost, Qualitative Research in Psychology; Furlong, The Conflict Resolution Toolbox, Models and Maps for Analyzing, Diagnosing, and Resolving Conflict; and Woodside, Case Study Research, Theory, Methods, and Practice. In your literature review, you should use theoretical concepts. The Handbook of Conflict Resolution has many of these that will provide a general framework for answering your research question. Most of the chapters in the handbook are literature reviews created to answer one of Deutsch's questions in the introduction chapter. You may use these as a model for your own literature review. I am only assigning the introduction chapter and the two conclusion chapters of this book so you can read the research questions prompted by the author. However, you should find chapters in this handbook that apply to your research question and include them in your literature review. Deutsch provides some contrast between conflict resolution practitioners and theorists. According to Deutsch, quote, in many disciplines of the natural as well as the social sciences, the scientist and the practitioner tend to stereotype each other, the scientist viewing the practitioner as unscientific, and the practitioner considering the scientist to be impractical. Unquote. This week's learning outcome is to define theory and describe why it's important for a reflective practitioner. We will do this by using Deutsch's contrast between practitioners and theorists. Practitioners synthesize knowledge, apply their experiences and best practices, and flexibly use tactics and strategies to produce desired consequences, whereas theorist generates knowledge, helps define theories, and attempts to develop knowledge that is universally true. Deutsch provides an overview of several different theories that are related to conflict. Darwin promoted the evolution of species through a competitive struggle for existence with a continuous survival, mutation, and adaptability of the fittest organisms. Marx theorized about class struggles and the dialectical breakup of society into two classes, the bourgeoisie and proletariat. He criticized the commodification of everything through capitalism and advocated a revolution through his Communist Manifesto to transform the unequal distribution of wealth to the equal distribution of poverty. Freud described an intrapersonal conflict between our biologically infantile id and the more dominant parental superego with a mixture of dream analysis, sexually inferred rationalizations for behavior, and interventions of psychotherapy. Field theory by Lewin describes three different approaches to conflict, which are the approach, avoidance, and approach avoidance. The game theories of von Neumann and Morgenstern translated conflicts into mathematical terms used to compare positive reality with normative recommendations for minimizing losses. One interesting thing noted by Deutsch, quote, over 1,000 studies based on experimental games have been published by 1985. Much of this research, as is true in other areas of science, was mindless, being done because a convenient experimental format was readily available. Unquote. Nevertheless, game theory has provided some useful models and explanations to understand conflict resolution. According to Deutsch, social science research and theorizing about conflict has focused on 13 major questions. Does your research question correlate with any of these themes discussed by Deutsch? As you collect your data and begin working on analyzing it, you should see connections between your findings and some of the theories discussed in this handbook. I just assigned the introduction and conclusion so you may understand the breadth of the covered theories. If you want greater depth, you will need to find the chapter related to the themes in your research and explore on your own. Deutsch and Goldman go on to elaborate on different research methods and audiences of research. This should reinforce the reading from last week about what audiences you are writing for. In this chapter, the authors provide examples directly related to the audiences of conflict resolution research. They also describe different types of research, which we will cover later in this course in greater detail. The chapter goes through some research strategies such as experimental and quasi-experimental design, causal modeling, survey research, experience surveys, and learning by analogy. The framework for thinking about research concludes with some case studies on how the methods were applied. The last chapter by Dean Pruitt shares some research frontiers in the study of conflict and its resolution. Pruitt provides many different theoretical concepts, additional questions, and other issues that still need to be explored. The next book I will go over is Frost, Qualitative Research Methods in Psychology. Research methods have their theories that you should become familiar with in addition to the conflict theories. You can almost delete the word psychology from this book and replace it with any other field that uses qualitative research. For example, NCRP practitioners use grounded theory to ask questions about a range of conflict. It asks what conflicts are occurring, how, and why. Discourse analysis asks questions about how language is used, what is said, and why it is being said. Interpretive phenomenological analysis asks about making sense of conflict and the meanings that events hold for people. Narrative analysis connects your assignment this week of writing a conflict story. What is the unique perspective of each disputant in a conflict? Pragmatism is the simplest form of answering research questions directly without digging into the underlying theories. This approach may combine a single or multiple methods of research to directly solve problems or answer a question. Bricolage promotes a more complex interdisciplinary approach to answering a question. It uses an eclectic mix of research methods, theories, and philosophical questioning to avoid limitations of a single method. Multi-perspectival analysis uses a variety of collecting and analyzing data to reduce the limitations of a single method. It may also take one method and add a data collection tool or analysis of the data in a different way, thus experimenting with the methodology. Triangulation is using more than one research method, most often combining a quantitative and qualitative method in order to find unique perspectives of the same phenomenon. In sum, research methods have underlying theories, and there are theories about mixing different research methods. The Furlong book has the most direct answers to the course learning outcome. On page 7, Furlong defines theory from the Merriam-Webster dictionary and then argues that models are more useful for conflict resolution practitioners than theories. Furlong gives 3 differences between models and theories. First, a model is focused on whether the practice is helpful rather than true. Second, a model narrows the focus of the information down to what will actually help practitioners solve problems rather than prove the theories. And finally, models are developed to help practitioners accomplish practical rather than abstract goals. An example Furlong gives is how an outline of a 40-hour mediation training focuses mostly on the steps of the mediation process, communication skills, and role plays, rather than the abstract theories about the root causes of conflict. Furlong has a whole section on becoming a reflective practitioner. He cites many examples from mediation and conflict resolution authors who have used reflection to improve their professional practice. I see the process he describes as circular, beginning with the practitioner reflecting or thinking about a conflict, modeling the process, training, intervention, or situation. Going clockwise around the circle, the practitioner will connect the thinking to a relevant theory, make modifications to the intervention or process, generate better models, learn how to learn the models, and then improve practice. Once again, the process of becoming a reflective practitioner is a continuous learning process. In sum, reflective practitioners critically evaluate theories based on their utility of understanding and managing conflicts. The primary reason I included Chapter 2 of Furlong is he included some stimulating graphics, and his collection of models seem to be products of reflective practitioners. These models are easier to read and use than some of the more abstract theories. I included Woodside because he describes how complex the connections between research and theory can be. He metacognitively breaks down the process of verbalizing thoughts and the conscious and unconscious exchange of information between parties. He covers how to build a theory through repetitive triangulation of interviews, observations, and document analysis. Furthermore, he describes the mental modes of gaining deeper understanding of a case by differentiating what was observed from what should have been observed and the participants' perceptions of what was observed. Woodside creates theories that help find out what is true or to prove a theory more than create practical models that can be used by practitioners. Thus, going back to the disconnect between theory and practice described in the Deutsch and Furlow text. That is all for this week. I hope you enjoyed this week's reading. I look forward to your comments on the discussion board about how you define theory and why it is important for your development as a reflective practitioner.